Do Democrats control the Texas House of Representatives? Let's get dialed in. News media company Texas Scorecard is an oasis of truth and accountability in the desert of leftist fake news outlets who serve as nothing more than a propaganda machine for the uniparty establishment. Its founder, Michael Quinn Sullivan, recently put out a documentary exposing how Democrats, in fact, control the Texas House. Michael Quinn Sullivan joins us now. Michael Quinn Sullivan, MQS, welcome to Texas Talkin.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming on. Michael, if you would, could you give our viewers sort of a high-level view of exactly how it is that Democrats have seized control of the Texas House of Representatives?
Sure. I wish I could say that it was some, deep, conniving plan where all the Republicans were all done in Cyrillic alphabet and code, with the Republicans not seeing the invisible ink. Instead, this takeover has happened with the complicit activity of Republicans, with Republican members of the Texas legislature going on 20 years now, participating fully and completely in letting Democrats call the shots. And look, you always have to acknowledge when your opponent is smart. We make the mistake sometimes of assuming our opponents are stupid. Well, the Democrats aren't stupid. Go back into the 1980s when the Democrats saw that Republicans were gaining ground. The Texans were less interested in being affiliated with the National Democratic Party, and Democrats started putting in place little cutesy games inside the Texas legislature, knowing that when Republicans took control, Republicans would fall for this, including things like they would appoint a token Republican as a committee chairman who never got legislation sent to his committee. When Republicans came in, they said, well, we'll do one better. We'll put Democrats in charge of major committees, and we'll send major Republican legislation to those committees. What could possibly go wrong? Well, of course, what went wrong was it thwarting the legislative agenda of the Republicans, despite Republican control for now 20 years.
And how do they do it? How does, for instance, a speaker gain favor with the Democrats to position them in a way that they, in fact, control the Texas House of Representatives?
What we've seen happen for the last three speakers of the Texas House, that's the current Speaker Dave Phelan, his predecessor Dennis Bond, and his predecessor Joe Straus, is that those three nominally Republican speakers started their campaigns for the speakership by going to the Democrats. They didn't start with Republicans. They didn't, call up, a state rep Bobby, a Republican from, Collin County or something. No. They started with the Democrats. That way they didn't go to the Republicans and say, look, I've got, 65, 70 Democrats backing me. I only need 5 or 6 of you to join in. And in fact, that's literally how Joe Straus got to be the Speed House kind of coup, if you will, against Tom Craddock, the first Republican Speaker of the Texas House, was by getting all the Democrats plus 11 Republicans to join him in overthrowing Tom Craddock. Some of this is a function of our state constitution, which merely puts the vote for Speaker on the floor of the chamber, doesn't call out parties, which is probably appropriate. The problem, though, is that while the Democrats are willing to exercise great discipline within their caucus, great discipline against their members, the Republican caucus nods and smiles and allows the Democrats to call the shots.
You reference this practice of appointing Democrats to committee chair positions, and I've shared this story with you privately, but I'll share it now publicly. I first learned about Texas Scorecard probably about a year ago, so not that long ago. And I was scrolling through social media, I think Facebook, and I saw what I thought at the time what must be some ridiculous story about Republican House Speaker Dade Phelan appointing Democrats to committee chair positions. And I thought, this is outrageous. There's no way this is true. It can't be possible. I mean, who would do something so self-defeating and insane? That'd be like looking at the U.S. Congress and having, Speaker McCarthy, former Speaker McCarthy now, thank God, appointing Democrats to committee chair positions in Congress. It just doesn't happen. So, of course, I cross-referenced it, and to my astonishment, I found out, no, that's exactly what's going on. So that point is when I started to get involved, and I really became a conservative grassroots activist here locally. So, to my detractors and the people who hate me, you can thank Michael Quinn Sullivan and Texas Scorecard for inspiring me to really get involved and take action at a local level, because this type of thing largely goes unknown.
Yeah, it does. And look, I wish I could say that, oh, well, you're the one guy. You're the one guy who didn't know. That might be comforting, right? In fact, a couple of years ago, I was in Kansas, but which I didn't even know was a state until I showed up there. And I'm up there giving a little talk. They want me to talk about, policy in Texas. And I make just kind of an off-the-cuff comment reference to a Democrat chairing a committee in the Texas House blocking some legislation. There are about 50, 60 people in the room, and this woman stands up and she says, "You're a liar." Now, I've given a lot of speeches over the years. I've literally never had someone stand up in the middle and scream, "I'm a liar." It took me aback. What are you talking about? I'm not lying. But thinking about my subject matter, there are no Democrats chairing committees in Texas, because Texas is a Republican state. And I'm kind of taken aback by this. And so fortunately, I'm using PowerPoint, which I rarely use, call up, the website of the legislature, completely now off topic of my speech, and instead walk these folks through, how the legislative process works in Texas. We've got Democrats chairing a third of the committees, and all of these people in the room who came listening to the Texan, came to listen, hoping that they would get some measure that if all else fails, they could always move to Texas. What they learned was that, no, this is pretty screwed up.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us of Texans have allowed ourselves, we believe our braggadocio, we believe our own PR, and we ignore the fact that in the Texas legislature, we're literally letting Democrats call the shots. And that's on us, Shiloh, as Texans, that you and I are believing our own PR rather than taking action, looking for substantive results from lawmakers.
Absolutely. And Michael, it's not just, I hear the objection, well, these are moderate Democrats that are appointed to these committee chairmanships. That is not the case. I mean, we're talking about people like Joe Moody, an avowed supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement, who was placed in charge of an important committee. And I believe it was the Jurisprudence Committee, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Or you have Victoria Niave, a Democrat radical leftist chairing the County Affairs Committee. Counties, 254 of them, literally the single most important block of government in the state of Texas is your county government. And you had a Democrat, a far left Democrat. She's now running for the Texas Senate against her incumbent Democrat state senator, in her words, because he's not progressive enough. So these are not, if you squint your eyes funny, you can see a Republican. No. These are leftists of the leftists who have been made committee chairs in the Dade Phelan Texas House.
And the other, of course, the other point that's often brought up is, well, this is a tradition that goes back for X amount of years. Traditions can be wrong, and in this case it is. And then typically they'll follow with something like, this is so that if the Democrats ever do have actual control of the legislature, they'll reciprocate and return the favor. And my response to that is always, do you think that today's leftist radical Democrat Party, for 1 second, do you think they would extend us that same privilege and courtesy? My answer to that is absolutely not.
Well, we should never be making plans based on our failure. We need to make sure that Republicans, and I'm talking about Republicans here, are delivering on the promises, on the policies that make Texans excited to turn out and vote. Democrats are not going to win elections on the value of their ideas. Democrats are going to win elections because Republicans fail to perform. And if Republicans continue to fail to perform, eventually voters are either going to say, what's the point of showing up? Or they're going to say, gosh, if I'm getting Democrat policies anyway, I might as well vote for the Democrats. We need Republicans to govern like Republicans. And, and look, maybe you could make the case back in the early 1980s that, Democrats, there were conservative Democrats, and a lot of them were as good as Republicans. Some were better than Republicans even. I'm sorry, Shiloh, but the last I checked, we're not in 1983, we're in 2023. We are not at that point where, we've got conservative Democrats. There's not a single pro-life Democrat left in Texas holding elected office or anywhere in the country. Same goes for tax policy. Just go down the line. The Democratic Party of 2023, 2024 is not the Democratic Party of the 1970s in Texas.
Yeah, this is not your dad or granddad's Democrat Party. It's just not. I want to go back for a moment to Speaker Dade Phelan. You put out a story yesterday in Texas Scorecard about some poll numbers, and frankly, they're cratering. Matt Rinaldi, in fact, called it unprecedented. What did Rinaldi mean by that, unprecedented?
Look, when you look at the Speaker of the House, number one, a lot of Texans don't know who the Speaker of the Texas House is, or at least historically. That has been changing over the last 20, 30 years as we put more and more power into the office of the speakership. Maybe the worst speaker of the modern era is a guy named Joe Strauss from San Antonio. He had to resign from office because he'd been censured by his home county GOP. Sound familiar to anyone? He was in danger of losing the speakership, in danger of losing his seat in the Texas House. And so he decided to call it quits rather than face the embarrassment of losing. His unfavorable polling numbers were just at about a -4, meaning underwater. Dade Phelan is underwater -9.
Wow.
You have a majority of the Texans who know who Dade Phelan is, a majority of them have an unfavorable view of it. Not only is that bad for Dade Phelan, that's bad for any Republican who aligns themselves with Dade Phelan. But that's statewide. The number that should be more concerning to Dade Phelan,
District 21
number is District 21, where you find 49% of voters in District 21 have an unfavorable opinion of Dade Phelan. That should be more concerning to him, but he seems like he doesn't care about either number, actually.
No, and I don't think any level of accountability or embarrassment could cause him to resign. We're going to have to vote him out, which I hope is what happens on March 5th of 2024, of course. How do you see, speaking of which, how do you see our side faring in this primary contest? Not just the speaker's race, but overall.
Yeah, look, I'm an Austrian economist, which means I abhor predicting the future. However, I can say that things feel better, here kind of the end of December 2023 than I remember them ever feeling before when it comes to the possibilities of real conservative, grassroots-focused, citizen-centric Republican legislators in primaries. You have an amazing slate of men and women who are challenging incumbents from across the state. And you see the incumbents with real terror in their eyes. You see them not quite sure who to trust, who to turn to historically. If you are incumbent members of the Texas House, you would turn to the Speaker and say, Mr. Speaker, I need your help back home. That's the unofficial job of the Speaker of the House, is to protect members back home. But this is a Speaker who got his members, who walked his members down the plank and off the ship of state, killing property tax reform for going on 5 months, having to be cajoled into finally doing something, killing school choice, impeaching the most popular attorney general in the nation, all because they didn't like him going after big pharma and big tech. Issue after issue, Dade Phelan is responsible for making a lot of these legislators feel nervous going into their primaries, which is why, according to a lot of the polling data, you're going to see a historic change in the legislature come 2024. Look, again, I'm not a big fan of predicting predicting things based on polling data. You always have to assume incumbents are going to win. But right now, you've got a lot of challengers better positioned than they ever have been before.
And I find it interesting that David Covey, who I believe is the most formidable candidate against Dade Phelan, has received some big time endorsements. Sid Miller just recently, Ken Paxton prior to that, Matt Rinaldi. What I haven't seen is, to my knowledge, any big time endorsements for Dade Phelan from incumbent Republicans. That should be something of interest, I think, to those of us who are watching this kind of on the sidelines.
Well, you take the dirty dozen of lawmakers who are the ones kind of most responsible as his henchmen, as his right hands.
I've exposed many of them on this show.
And you spend a lot of time talking about these guys. Even they are keeping their distance from Dade Phelan.
Yep.
You have to look at the Texas House, and I'm sure somebody's going to be offended by this. I don't care. You have to look at the Texas House as 150 rats, all of whom are eager to either eat the rat next to them or let it drown, right? And when you look at the dirty dozen, they're all watching Dade Phelan struggle in the water, and not a single one of them are going to help, which would tell you a lot, not only about Dade Phelan, but about the character of the men and women he has surrounded himself with.
Where he does, and this is something that just perplexes me beyond belief, where Dade Phelan does still have quite a bit of support is in Beaumont itself, among party leadership in Beaumont, the county executive committee of which I'm a part. I cannot wrap my head around this because many of these people appear to be very conservative. They, in fact, support Donald Trump. They've always supported Donald Trump. And yet it's almost like they're willing to walk off this cliff with Dade Phelan. And I'm saying, guys, you don't have to follow him. You can get off the bus at any time that he's careening off the road, and they just don't do it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, part of the challenge, when you work in and around politics is that everyone ends up becoming a Tory, right? In England, the Tories are the people who will shout, "God save the king," while whispering to each other, "The king is an idiot." But God save the king. And Republicans seem to suffer from this even more than Democrats too. Republicans have very much whoever's the incumbent, I'm pro-incumbent. That's our guy. And it feels like the higher you get into the party hierarchy, the more a lot of folks within the party hierarchy believe their job is to support the incumbent. In fact, I would suggest supporting the incumbent is maybe the worst thing that people high up in a party can do. Their job, whether you're talking about Jefferson County, or you're talking about the state of Texas or the National Republican Party, their job should be to protect the brand of the party, to protect the ideas and the principles for which the party stands. Because ultimately, what attracts me as a voter to the Republican Party is not the next guy to be caught sleeping with the secretary. It's the policies and the principles and the ideas that are espoused by that party. Now, look, you've got all these messengers out there, but ultimately, the job of the party should be to protect the brand name of the party, and getting too wrapping up your future in with some politician is in a lot of cases antithetical to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm often chastised for not really showing what they call party unity, and my response to that has always been, yes, I believe we need to be unified, but what we need to be unified behind are our principles, our legislative conservative priorities, not personalities. We don't unify, or we shouldn't unify behind personalities. We should unify, as you just basically said, behind principles.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. When it should be very revealing to us that when you look at the results of the Republican primaries for a decade or more, 2 decades now, the Republican Party has placed these policy questions at the end of every primary ballot. It's like 10 of them or so usually, and without fail, every single one of those will have more votes on them than any particular office around the state. More Republican voters, the human beings, not the people in office, not the people who run websites or have podcasts. I'm talking about real human beings who vote in their Republican primary, pay taxes, go have a real job and have their families, all that kind of stuff. Those folks are very dreadful ideas that will shape the future of Texas. And they show time after time after time that they're more concerned with those ideals than they necessarily are with the individuals whose names are on the ballot. That should tell us something.
And piggybacking off that idea that you just mentioned of regular folks, not people like you and me who live, breathe, and die politics, but regular, normal people. There's this groundswell that I see of activism, conservative grassroots activism, particularly over this past year. And many of the people who watch my show, I would put into that category. And so I just want to ask you, if you could encourage my viewers and followers to do one thing to make a difference, what would it be?
The single most important thing that you and I and our friends can do to make a difference is to have honest conversations with our neighbors, with folks at church, the people that we work with. We have allowed ourselves in the 21st century, even in the 20th century, to believe a horrible lie. And the lie goes like this: in polite company, we don't talk about politics or religion. You and I should reject that lie every single day by our conversations with our neighbors and our friends. The enemy loves for us to be silent about governance and be silent about our faith. The enemy wants us to be silent about those things. You and I should speak with our last breath about our faith. We should encourage our fellow citizens to hold fast to the ideals of self-governance that our founding fathers gave us. The only way that we will save our republic is with more people being involved. And the way to do that is not, great to tweet, great to post on Facebook, all those kind of things. That's wonderful. But the thing that actually will get people to the polls, the thing that will actually start changing your school board, your city council, your state rep, and Congress is going to be more of us engaging with our friends and family. And then there's always this hesitancy, Shiloh, where folks say, oh, but gosh, my neighbor might think badly of me if I talk about this. What I have found is that actually, if you have an honest conversation with someone that you're friends with, they appreciate it. People are actually hungry for honest dialogue. They don't want to be berated. They want to be beaten about the head and shoulders with the 2x4. But there's a fine line between beating someone with the 2x4 and being silent. And we need to find that happy place where we have these kind of conversations to get more people involved.
Yes, yes. Well, folks, you can find more of Michael Quinn Sullivan's content along with the content of his staff at www.texasscorecard.com. I'll put that up on the screen for our viewers. And I would also encourage people to sign up for what I've signed up for about the past year now, the Texas Minute. It's an email summary of all things Texas politics that comes out about 6 o'clock in the morning every day. It's a great way for me, anyway, to start the day off. I look at it every morning. So sign up for that. You've been dialed in to Texas Talkin' with Shiloh Platts. Michael, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Shiloh. Appreciate having me on with you.
Yes, sir. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas.